1977.
Demonstration better than conversation.
Interviewed by Las Vegas police.
I started working with Right-Way Security in September of 1995.
Yeah, I worked with Right-Way Security, not with Death Row Records, and Right-Way was employed by Death Row Records.
96 is when I came on, I believe. It was either late 95, November, December, or early 96.
And what I heard over that radio that night, after the shots were fired,
they got word that Tupac and Suge had been shot. So Michael was with Reggie and they went to the hospital together. And Michael talks about hearing something over the radio. Well, he would have heard it over Reggie's radio because he wouldn't have had a radio that night.
Right before me and Mr. Wright got in the vehicle to go get to the hospital, someone else came on the radio and said, "Hey, don't say nothing over the radio."
That communication, however obtained, either through search warrant or otherwise, needs to be gathered, because how can you tell a conspiracy if you don't have the conspirators and you don't have the communication between the people that are actually running the conspiracy?
We're apparently hearing this information about Frank, if he shows up, or if Frank is not, talking on our side and Ben on our side, that we're going to have to take him out, And these are words from Michael Moore. Michael Moore was telling me that, that he was hearing this around the office. And Michael Moore continued to work for Death Row's office.
You've got to know a timeline of the individual who is your target. You've got to know where they're at, where they're going to be, who they're going to be surrounded by. And the second thing is, following that timeline, knowing when there is, you're going to have to plan according to that.
Mr. Wright and I were talking about what had happened, and I just clearly heard somebody say, "Don't say that over the radio." But the person who said it was not Homeboy Security, nor was it one of our security guards. It was, to me, it would be like a stranger. Someone, and the person that said that was Caucasian, definitely not African American.
But there was a plan already to do something to him.
Yeah.
And that's why, like I said, I had couple of guys for him, and Reggie pulled them off of me. And after it happened, I told him to send 5 guys from the club to there, and they never sent nobody.
Yeah.
Came across a letter that was we call it the confession letter, that was given to us by Chris Blatchford at Fox News.
None of the same people are in the car. A different group of people, 2 brothers, Danny and Malcolm Patton, and a rapper by the name of Little Pat did, who R.J. Bond says was the trigger man who shot Tupac.
Can you explain to me, how did that confession letter come about?
The letter was given to Chris Blatchford, who was a reporter for Fox News, by a confidential informant. This letter was apparently dictated by Danny Patton, who wanted to confess his involvement in the killing of Tupac Shakur to Chris Blatchford.
Primarily the statement of Corey Edwards. Corey Edwards was a friend of Orlando Anderson's that had gone to Las Vegas with Orlando Anderson. He actually saw Orlando Anderson at the bar and approached Orlando Anderson. So Orlando had mentioned that he had gotten into what he called a dust-up with Tupac Shakur's crew.
But that he didn't seem to be too upset about it.
It's time to listen to L.A.
The first thing that we did, we looked at what the salient points of the letter were. First salient point of the letter was that there was a problem with demo stealing. The killing of Tupac Shakur may have been related to a grudge that had been held by a rapper by the name of Lil Half-Dead. Death Row Records and engineers, Tommy Duarte, and many other people that we'd interviewed had verified for us that it was not uncommon to take a song that somebody would bring in as a demo and then re-record the song, make their own.
And I'm gonna tell y'all one thing that I know for a fact, and rest in peace, Easy D.
One thing about Eric told me one day, I thought Andre did all the music, all the beats. All right, whoop. You know what Eric told me? Huh? People send our demos in. Andre redo them. We redo the rap.
Yeah.
That's the song.
All right.
I took that same get down, so basically I took it from Easy and did the same shit. I took it from Easy and took it to another level.
All right.
And guess what? Jimmy Iovine sent me to prison and stole it from me.
After that had happened, there was an altercation between Tupac and Little Half Dead in Reno, Nevada. Little Half Dead was beaten up very severely by what the letter described as Tupac's soldiers. Danny Patton, Malcolm Patton, and Little Half Dead, they would be the shooters. And the letter even makes a point of saying that no matter what Tupac did, they were not going to make it out alive.
I think because no one has ever been charged with the killing of Pac, that all theories are on the table. But you have to believe in this theory, one, that Orlando Anderson has nothing to do with it, and two, you also have to consider the credibility of Mr. Soria, a jailhouse informant that got this Patton brother theory rolling, who's in prison, and you have to embrace all of that information if you're going to give that Patton theory any legs.
Now, the crazy thing about that statement is Soria claims this happened on the streets, not in prison.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Soria, about the Patton brothers and individual known as Little Half Dead and their alleged involvement in the murder of Tupac Shakur. What can you tell me about that?
Me and Danny, we used to work together, like to do some construction work at the same time. We did some, illegal stuff on the side. He said that he had some information about Tupac Shakur. And I asked him, like, what kind of information? Well, that he was involved with the shooting, and him and his brother, and Little Half Dead.
Was there a meeting for them to go set up the hit?
Yeah, there was. That's the Smooth Sound Productions.
Now, Smooth Sound Recordings is a studio out of Van Nuys, near Pacoima. That's where we recorded our first album in '96, the Battlegrounds compilation. At that time, the owner's name was Jerry, and I still think to this day he owns it. But we had another dude that was the engineer. Can't quite remember his name at the moment, but when I do, I'll make sure I get that reference to y'all. Now, they're alleging that the Patton brothers had a meeting with someone at Smooth Sounds Recordings.
In this theory, everybody keeps pointing at Danny Patton as the driver of the car that was used in the commission of the murder.
The two reasons given in the letter for Little Half Dead's involvement in this theory is number one, that he had a fight with Tupac in Reno, Nevada, and number two,
when I was doing the movie Juice,
Tupac stole Brenda's
it was this story. It started out to be this big story about this family who died because they didn't have heat and they left the gas on. Everybody died except for this girl. She moved in with her cousins, second cousins. She started dating her second cousin. He got her pregnant. Nobody noticed she was pregnant yet. And I was like, dang. And it was over a week, but the story kept getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. And I was like, this is like very important. No black males talk about black females like we should. We need to take more responsibilities for our sisters, because if we don't, who will?
I got love for Tupac. Why would I shoot Tupac? He ain't did nothing to me.
Where do you think this rumor, this theory came from?
I don't know. I don't even know. Out of all the people in the world, why he pulled my name out the hat.
He mentions the name of the Patton brothers, Malcolm Patton and Danny Patton.
Don't know them. Don't know who they are, never seen them. They can walk right past me right now and I wouldn't know who them dudes were. Yeah, I heard that it was about supposedly Brenda's Got a Baby. And when Brenda's Got a Baby came out, I wasn't even in the music industry. At that time, I didn't even know Pop.
Had never met him?
No, until he came around Death Row.
You were not in Las Vegas, Nevada the night Tupac got shot. You were not in a white Cadillac the night Tupac Shakur got shot.
No. As a matter of fact, the night he was going to Vegas, I was sitting in the car with Snoop. When he pulled up beside us, they was in Rolls Royces, and he looked at Snoop like, hey, y'all, you ain't going to Vegas? Snoop was like, nah, man. All right, man, be careful, peace. And they pulled off.
This is a 5.5-hour flight. Don't nobody say one word to me. Not one word. Just having conversations and doing all kinds of things, saying nothing. Now we land. Our Rolls Royce, Tupac Rolls Royce, Suge Rolls Royce. We step off the plane. I'm like, Pop, you going to Vegas to the fight? That's the last time I seen my...
Now, the problem I have with Snoop saying that is basically Snoop was on the plane by himself. He said they got off the plane and they each jumped in their Rolls Royces. Lil Half Dead said he was with Snoop. But Snoop said he was by himself. That's why he put a fork and a knife in his hand. And he was afraid. So now all of a sudden Lil Half Dead is at the airport waiting for Snoop inside of his Rolls Royce. Sounds unlikely.
Wow, so you saw him the night before he went to Las Vegas?
Yes, and then as a matter of fact, when the doctor called, after that, I went home, we played Madden with Snoop for a little while, went home, wake up the next day, they like, man, Pop got shot. Like, what?
Have you heard anything about who killed Tupac Shakur?
Name my business. The world knows that Lil Half Dead did not kill Tupac. You know what I'm saying? I ain't got nothing to do with that. I wasn't there, don't know who did it, don't know how they did it, don't know when they did it. That's the police job.
Frank blocked us in purposely. Later he told us at the streets, they told him to do it, you know?
Yeah.
His cops, they freaked him so bad he died, you know?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and Michael Moore.
Yeah. And then, Perez was all involved. They were trying to kill me too, because Perez and Reg was good friends, and Perez and Sarita and Reg is great friends, and so all those three together was trying to plot, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Russell got it right before he died.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
You know, and the sad thing about it, Orlando wasn't even the shooter, you know?
No, exactly. No.
He ain't sentence for this at all. He was actually a good kid too, you know?
Yeah.
This audio you just listened to is the most important exchange to take note of. Suge Knight implicates LAPD cop Rafael Perez, his ex-wife, Sharitha Knight, and Reggie Wright Jr. in the killing of Tupac. He alludes again that if you understand the power struggle that was going on at the time for Death Row Records, you would also understand the role Reggie Wright Jr. played in all of this. This is the first time that Suge Knight has implicated Rafael Perez. What is interesting is that he puts Perez in the middle of the shooting of Tupac.